Welcome back to The Outpost. Imagine what this world would look like if men led at home, in their marriages, families, work, and most importantly, themselves, with high emotional intelligence. That is exactly what we're exploring today at The Outpost. Pull up a chair. The Outpost, you're sitting in it. Take a look. We built this for you. This is a place for men to gather, exchange stories, lean in and learn. It's a place for curiosity. We will, from time to time, have people join the table. But today at the table, for the first time, is Peyton Barrett. Most of what you see online, most of what you see in our media, most of what you see here is the work and the dream from Peyton.
Yes.
So we're incredibly excited to have him in the conversation.
Glad to be here.
Because he is an architect and a fountain of wisdom in his own right. Thrilled to have him here. At the front end, I talked about EQ, and today our storied sage joining us is a man who has led hundreds of men and mentored hundreds of men, and with his wife, Danielle, mentored hundreds of couples in their marriage ministry, intentional marriages. So I'd just like to welcome to The Outpost, Russ West.
Hey, it's great to be here. Thank you so much.
So glad
it's
you're
such
here.
an honor
Russ.
and blessing to be here. And we're going to talk about one of my favorite subjects.
So excited.
So take us back when you were 34
Mm-hmm.
and your wife walks in and says she doesn't want to be married anymore.
Let's start heavy.
Yeah, we're going to go right in.
We're getting right into it.
Well, you know,
Ouch.
one thing, I'm not a very smart man, but I'm obedient. I'm just doing what Peyton said. When your wife walks in and says at 34, hey, I don't want to be married anymore. What do you remember about that moment?
I remember just, shock, but extreme fear. I mean, the fear that overcame me, you feel like this can't be happening because I'm such a, to show you how knuckleheaded we can be as men. The day before, if you would have asked me if I had a good marriage, I said, we have a great marriage. And here now she wouldn't have said the same thing. She said, I should have known. Right. But it was just shock, but extreme fear.
Don't you think that's typical in your experience of like the men are
yeah.
oblivious
Absolutely.
and shame on us for not asking our wives, like, how am I doing? Like,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I don't think I probably had never asked my wife how I was
me
doing.
too.
One of the things that's interesting is that in those moments, in that season, we were about the same age. I never got that statement from Monica, but in my heart, in my soul, Holy Spirit, I knew that something was off. I knew that it wasn't going well. And I just didn't have the tools to say it. I didn't really want to speak it because once the toothpaste
It gets out.
as Andy says, leaves the tube, you can't put it back in.
Well, I mean, just think about what that says about your emotional intelligence. Like, God, I thought I was killing it. I thought I was the perfect husband.
Yeah. And that was the thing. I needed, as we'll talk about later, I needed to be the perfect husband.
Yeah.
So I was trying so hard to be a great husband.
Yeah.
I just didn't know how.
Yeah. Amen.
Well, what was going on inside of you right then? What were you feeling? What were you thinking? Because yes, it was fearful, but I think behind the fear, there had to be a lot of other thoughts, a lot of other.
The fear in that moment, you're trying to breathe. You're so scared. And then I look back on it, what I was really afraid of is I was afraid of being looked at as a failure as a husband, a failure as a father. I had a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old at the time, and failing God. I just felt, and I had this obviously a huge fear of failure, and here I was failing at the things that were most important in my life.
Well, there's a reason why we jumped straight into the deep end of the pool, because it didn't take more than 3 minutes for 3 men to say, been there, and each in our own walk.
Still there a little bit.
And still, oh yeah,
Absolutely.
So I want to just pause and as we established how this is going to feel, I want to pause and have you tell us a little bit more about intentional marriage.
Sure. So Danielle and I, fast forward a little bit, I ended up getting divorced. It took 2.5 years from that statement till that when she came in and said that till I got divorced. And then ended up, didn't think I would ever get married again, right? Told God, I'm not going to ever marry again. Don't ever tell God what you're not going to do, right? So, yeah, here comes, there's another emotional intelligence issue, right? He's trying to tell God what you're not going to do and not going to do. So here comes Danielle later on, and we get married, and then we wanted to do it differently, right? And so we as I'll talk later, we got into counseling. We started attending our church's marriage curriculum at North Point. And then later on, we started teaching it, leading or volunteering, facilitating the marriage curriculum. We were sharing things we were learning from counseling with those folks. And people said, "Hey, would you mentor us in your marriage?" I'm like, "I don't think I'm qualified. I've been divorced. You sure you want me to mentor you?" And so we started, and that was 2012. And I was a software sales guy and working tons of hours, but nights and weekends we would mentor, and it was helping people, and we were loving it. And it just kept going and going. And then 2 years ago, I left my 30-year software sales career to do it full time with Danielle. So We've been doing this since 2012, formally started Intentional Marriages in 2015, which I was working. So really it was Danielle doing blogs and YouTube videos. And as we always say, it was easy because I would just mess up and she would write a blog or do a video on what I did wrong, right? And that was
here we go.
That was how we launched Intentional Marriage website, back in the day. But now we, for the last little over 2 years now, been doing it full time. And then we also, so we have a huge passion for marriages, obviously, but we also have a huge passion for helping younger men and younger women. So I mentor younger men. She mentors younger women on life skills, and it's faith, finances, dating/marriage, job/career, health, and emotional intelligence.
Is it one-on-one your ministry and for couples, or is it you do groups? Like
both. We do both.
Okay.
But I would say about 80% of it is just 2-on-2. And then I'll meet individual with the husbands. Danielle meet individual with the wives. But we also do groups as well. So
you don't do like just a single man, like it's the couples that then you break apart and minister to separately.
Yeah, no, I also mentor single men.
Okay.
Yeah. So I have
individual men,
all different. But so because of my software sales career, I get folks will refer younger software sales guys to me, and some are married, some are not, just to talk about software. But then we always talk about emotional intelligence, no matter where they are at in life. So no, I have, I would say 10-15% of the men that I mentor are single. So I have a passion for for every generation because I work with guys. We even have a couple, believe it or not, one couple that we mentor that are 80 and 82 and been married 60 years.
Wow.
And, but that's rare, right? We have a lot of folks in their 60s, empty nesters, but then all the way down, we have premaritals in their 20s, marrieds in their 20s, and every age, every generation or every decade.
Wow. Have you heard the adage where if you really want to be an expert, teach it? Did you find when you guys started getting in a position of teaching that your marriage?
Yes. Because what it does is it keeps what you need to do in the front of your mind. I mean, it keeps it top of mind.
Fresh.
And people, so we lead help lead the marriage curriculum at North Point, and it's an 8-week small group format, and it's every spring and fall. And we just finished our 29th group, and people will say, "Why do you do this over and over?" And I'm like, because I'm a better husband those 8 weeks than the rest of the year, because it is in the front of my mind. Yeah. And when you're teaching it, it puts a lot more accountability to do what you're teaching. So it really helps.
Scott and I remarked over and over again, we did 10 years of LDG, of men's discipleship. And we would, same curriculum for 8 of those years. We'd read the same books every year. And every year he and I would come back and go, "Did you notice that? We've read this 8 times. And like how God uses it over and over to instruct you. And we should always be students, I think is the point.
Always. I'm learning. And, and to your point, we learned in our last group, small group that we had this past spring, there was a couple that we were mentoring this couple 2-on-2, and then we got them into the group we were doing, and we're sharing different skills and tools. And they said, "We do da 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 da." I'm like, my goodness, how come we never thought of that? I mean, here it is. And we've been sharing that skill ever since then. It was just 2 months ago.
Yeah.
And we've been, had this ministry for years, and we just learned something incredibly new that's helping not just us, but the couples we're working with.
I think about 5 feet for 5 minutes.
Oh,
have you heard of that? 5 feet for 5 minutes?
Oh,
when you come home from work.
Yeah. The first 5 minutes be 5 feet from
you. Don't go to the restroom. You don't turn the
Exactly.
TV on. You don't go change your clothes. You walk in.
Yeah.
And how revolutionary was that? I learned that maybe 10 years ago.
Yeah, we teach that.
It changed our lives.
Because as our counselor told us, transitions are so important. Even just going to the grocery store and coming home.
yes.
But coming home from work, that transition is so important. And so,
And the idea is to stay within 5 feet of your wife.
Yeah, the first 5 minutes
For the
when
first
you get
5
home,
minutes.
don't come in on the phone, right?
Yeah.
And then don't come in and then run up to the room, or come in,
Put on Sports Center.
right? Exactly.
Yeah.
Come in and sit down, or be 5 feet from your spouse
Mhm.
and talk, see how they're doing. I think the Gottmans are the ones that came up with that.
And not 5 feet from your spouse texting
No,
or scrolling.
no.
Or,
This is
No
me.
distractions.
I don't have the TV on. I'm not on the phone.
But it's
But
the priority of the first 5 minutes.
It's the ultimate check-in. And then where it gets really fun is when you have small children. This is when the
Mhm.
friction
Yeah.
starts, is where you literally have to look at the small children, give them some Cheerios or some goldfish,
Mhm.
Right.
and send them the message.
Right.
I'm right here with mom right now.
Exactly.
And what does that model to them about the importance of this relationship is
Yeah.
first?
Well, I think about how it changed our marriage, because when I started, I'd come home and almost inevitably she'd be on the phone with one of her friends, and she'd stay on the phone
Right.
for a while, and they're just catching up. It's conversation, nothing, and I would just pull up a stool and sit in the kitchen. And about the third or fourth day, she hung up when I came in, because she's like, "What's going on here? Like, this is different." And she never was on the phone again. Like it's like what she needed was connection, and I was coming in and changing and turn on the TV or go work in the yard.
Right.
And our marriage has been different since.
Absolutely.
Like something as simple as 5 feet
5
for
feet,
5
5
feet, it
minutes,
changed
exactly.
our lives.
There are so many moments in life. There's the moment before Jesus. There's the moment after Jesus. There's the moment of seeing your kids being childless and having your first child. There's the moment where your wife comes in and says, "I don't want to be married to you." There's the moment that says, I want to turn this hobby into a passion, into a calling. When you look back, how different is the man sitting here today than the man from that moment
at 34?
At 34.
Well, at 34, what's different is I understand that the older I get, the more I believe, but the less I know. Right. So the guy that here today is, I understand that emotional intelligence, is so important. Right. And how this came about was, thank the good Lord that when my wife, that happened, and she was serious. It wasn't like she was trying to get my attention. She was out mentally. And so, someone, got me into counseling, or got us into counseling. And this counselor just was such a blessing from God. Mm-hmm. Has his master's in divinity. He's a pastor, but he has his master's in family therapy, and he's a world expert on the brain and nervous system. Mm-hmm. I mean, he is the rarest of rarest counselors, and he marries all of that together. And so I got with him, and he was, after he spent a few sessions with me, I'll never forget, this was one of the hardest things that ever happened to me, but one of the best things. He said, "Russ," he said, "you have a lot of work to do on yourself." And he goes, "I can't promise you if you do this work, you're going to stay married." He goes, "But I promise you," remember my kids were 2 and 6. He goes, "I promise you that if you don't do this work, you won't have a relationship with your children when they're teenagers or adults." Wow. And I had to be a good father because of the way I grew up. It was so humbling and so humiliating when I learned my role in the state of my marriage. I was trying to be a great husband, but I learned my role in the state of the marriage, and so counseling is when that initial counseling is where I started first learning about emotional intelligence, how my emotions were impacting my marriage. Trying to be a perfect person, a perfect husband, a perfect father was absolutely exhausting to my wife and children. right? And nobody could ever live up to that perfection.
Is that the required initial step for emotional intelligence, is to start looking here and
absolutely
like, is that when you start trying as best you can to objectively assess your own limitations, your own, is that when it begins?
Absolutely. And our ego will fight it like crazy.
Yes.
Our ego will say, no. Our subconscious, no, we cannot go down this path. So it will fight it. And that's why it was so hard. But he gave me the goal, is I wanted to have a relationship with my children when they were teenagers and adults, right? So he gave me, here's why you're going to do, I can't promise your marriage is going to stay together, but the best chance you have for it to staying together is to work on yourself. And man, that's when it all started.
It's funny, when I started seeing a counselor, I was 61. That was the first time I learned. And I wasn't 34, so he didn't say, you still have time to, it's not so deeply rooted. He said, Tim, you're 61. You ain't going to change that much. Don't work hard, but some of that stuff you're not going to be able to understand. So what a powerful statement to make to a 34-year-old.
It was huge, and it changed my life. And I've been with him now. This October will be 28 years continuously. So I went to him early as, out of that reactivity and just help me. Then I look at him as a life coach. He's been my life coach and my emotional coach, if you will, but I look at him as a life coach for now. He's 72 and I'm 61 now. And I've been with, like I said, it'll be 28 years. And we've referred over 200 people to him, and he's just a very special. So, if you can find, that's where it started for me, with the emotional intelligence journey started.
So before we get too much further, because I think the three of us we've talked to you a lot about this in preparation. We've read up on it a little bit. For the guys who are watching who are like, I've never heard about emotional intelligence. I thought emotions and intelligence were like two separate sides of the brain and body and heart and brain. Give us a little bit of like a 101, a definition. What is emotional intelligence?
Yeah. So for me, and it's a very layman's term, and there's a lot of more detailed probably definitions, but I look at it as understanding our emotions and learning how to manage our emotions, and then learning how to manage how we interact with other people's emotions, especially when they say something we don't like or agree with, or they do something we don't like or agree with. That's when our emotions get out of whack. But other things as well, but just understanding our emotions, learning how to manage them, and learning how we manage how we interact with other people's emotions. That's my definition. Yeah. And, I'll to try to set for people for the guys who are listening and may not think it's that important, I'll give you two examples. Maybe this will help you believe more how important it really is that Satya Nadella, who's the CEO of Microsoft, right? Since he's been there, they've gone from 300 billion in market valuation to 3 trillion.
Wow.
Okay. Wow. And so what he's done there is incredible. He's considered one of the greatest leaders, in the corporate world. And he was interviewed by Inc. magazine 3 years ago, and he said 2 words separate the most successful people from all other people, and it's not work ethic or skill set. And work ethic and skill set are really important at Microsoft, right? Very important.
Yeah, sure.
But he said 2 words, emotional intelligence, by far separate the most successful people from other people. So, I mean, and then I'll give you another little story. In 2010, I was in software sales. My customer was the chief technology officer at Coca-Cola Enterprises. And we were sitting in his office talking life. And he said he had just gotten out of his coaching session with his executive coach. And the executive coach had told him that what would most likely keep him from going the next level. Now, he's 2 down from the CEO of Coca-Cola.
Not many levels left.
Not many levels left, right? It said that what would most likely keep him from getting to that next level would be emotional intelligence, not his skill set.
Wow.
And he goes, I had the emotional intelligence to become the chief technology. And she's telling me that's what's most likely going to keep me from going to the next level. So that's how important.
Not numbers management. Yeah. Not
where you went to MBA.
Not AI.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. It's emotional intelligence.
And I was tempted to say not people management, but emotional intelligence is people management.
Absolutely.
At the highest, best level.
Leadership at the best level.
And so we believe, if that's true, if someone if it's true, and I think it's Talent Grid or Talent Smart that did this big survey that said that like 58% of executives said that emotional intelligence was the most important thing. Wow. And so we believe if that's in business, and of course they're looking at it from a business perspective, right? Danielle and I also believe, and we can tell with the 400 couples that we've worked with, for over 400 couples, that we believe that's the key to a good marriage is emotional intelligence.
So it's so funny. you've sat in front of hundreds of men. In your career, you've sat in front of leaders of all different shapes and sizes and stripes, levels. What are the blockers? What is it that keeps us from working on ourselves first? What is it that keeps us from saying, hold on. Before I fire back, I want to look inwardly. What are the main blockers that you would say I just see this commonly?
Or is it just naivete that like we don't even realize that emotional intelligence is something that exists? It's a science that we can, read into and uncover in ourselves.
Yeah, my opinion is it's the way our brain and nervous system works. So I love what John Eldredge says, that we all have this wound. Am I good enough? Right? We call it, Danielle and I call it
all people, or men particularly.
Okay, so Danielle and I believe all people, but men in particular. John says that all men have the wound, am I good enough? And women have the wound, am I pretty enough? But if you look up what's underneath both of those is a wound of inadequacy.
Sure.
Right? If I'm not adequate, if I'm not pretty enough, that's a form of inadequacy. If I'm not good enough, that's a form of inadequacy. So we call it the wound of inadequacy that we all have. Okay, well, because of that wound of inadequacy, the last thing our nervous system, which is designed to keep us safe, wants to admit that I'm inadequate. So I don't want to look at myself. I don't want to go to counseling. I don't want an accountability partner that's going to, that's going to make me feel even more inadequate.
That's going to show you that your emotions are out of whack.
It's going to put a spotlight on my inadequacy. But the
Mm-hmm.
key to emotional intelligence is acknowledging I am inadequate. All of us are. Now, how do we always ask men, I always ask the men, we ask the couples, ask yourself after you leave here, after we work with them, ask yourself, what are the ways my wound of inadequacy, we all have it, shows up, right? So for me, mine shows up as I constantly need validation I'm good enough, that I'm a good husband, that I'm a good father, a good friend, a good mentor, a good mentee, good employee when I was working. I need constant validation. And what that does is it puts subconscious pressure on everybody to validate that I'm good enough, right? For Danielle, the way her wound of inadequacy shows up is feeling ignored or stupid or not smart. Right? If in any way, and that's, once again, these are because of how we all have this baseline one of inadequacy, but things that happen in our past, usually our childhood, or what kind of create the way it shows up. And another one's embarrassed. So if I feel that when I get embarrassed, oh my goodness, I go to I just, and that's because that's the one other way that my wound of inadequacy shows up, because my dad used to embarrass me horrifically. So man, when I get embarrassed, it's like I go to a 10 on a 1 to 10, right? And so all of us have this wound of inadequacy, but we don't want nobody subconsciously. Last thing I want to do is do anything to look at my wound of inadequacy. That's what keeps us from doing it, in my opinion.
Can I go back, touch on one thing? What's the difference between emotional intelligence and self-awareness? Is there a difference? Because I'd always heard that the differentiating factor with executives, really world-class executive, is self-awareness. Is it really kind of the same thing?
So here's my, where I think I think self-awareness is a piece of emotional intelligence. They're not the
same.
It's part of it, right? So I can be self-aware, but I may not be good at, when someone says something I don't like or agree with,
how you do it,
how I respond to
so
that.
maybe it's the first step of emotional stuff. Like just back to our early, once you start looking at yourself.
I've got to understand my emotions first before I can start learning how to control them.
Right on.
But that ability and the skills and tools and processes on how to do emotional intelligence well, just because I know something doesn't mean I'm good at it.
Well, you could be self-aware and decide and you just gonna have to put up with it.
Yeah,
that's not high EQ.
That's not high EQ.
A lot of executives have that, right?
Exactly.
Super confident.
So self-awareness is a piece or a first step of it.
Makes sense. That's good. Good.
So pulling the red thread, to step back to your 20s and 30s, coming from, guys in my stage of life, what was going on back in your 20s or 30s that you knew, hey, maybe something was off, but you didn't have that the realization to go, oh, this is emotional intelligence. I need to, because you probably had some of that fear of inadequacy. What was that like in your 20s and 30s? And what did it take? I mean, it sounds like it took until your wife coming in and saying, I don't want to be married anymore, before you were like, oh. Something's wrong.
Yeah.
And the young men that I work with today in the 20s and 30s, most of them are just like I was in my 20s and 30s, right? It's all of my, how I felt important or how I felt validated was, through achievement, right? So how well was I doing at work? It was, what did I acquire? What is my house, car, country club if I belong to one?
It's the rat race and comparison game.
It's the comparison game. It was, how pretty is my girlfriend or wife? If I was married, my wife, if I wasn't my girlfriend, you see that today with the guys and go, today we didn't have this back then, but social media.
Oh, I was just about to say, like, it
accelerates.
How many followers do I have?
Sure.
And so it's all my image, is what's so important. That was me, and you don't think of it consciously. It's just a subconscious game.
Well, I think society pounds it into you. And our fathers pound it in.
And I know right now in my stage of life, I'm in my late 20s. I'm having conversations, like just in the last 10 days, I've probably talked to 3 or 4 of my close buddies who are all like, dude, I gotta, we've been in our careers roughly. I've been in my career 10 years now. I've had buddies who have been in their careers, 6 to 8 years now, and we're all approaching 30. And I've had 2 buddies, honestly, including myself, in the last few weeks who have been like, I got to change my career. I gotta go find a job where I can
because it's not happening fast enough.
Where I can get 40% more income, where I can, because I don't feel like I'm gonna get the raise at the company that I'm at for the next 5 years, and that's gonna take too long. I'm gonna be in my early 30s. I'm gonna have kids at that point, and so it's this. I'm dealing with it. I have buddies dealing with it. And I think we're all dealing with it because we're looking at social media. But honestly, it's a little bit of, we're looking at each other going, well, he just bought a house and I don't have a house yet. And he just bought his wife a new car and I can't buy my, it's a real thing.
Oh, absolutely. And you see it at every generation, every decade age but the 20s and 30s, it is just so focused on that. Now one of the things I really want to compliment the guys in their 20s and 30s and the ladies as well is emotional intelligence is not a new term to them. Right. So counseling is not a new, they're much more open to counseling, which means they're much more open to looking at themselves and emotional intelligence than 40s, 50s, 60s, and 70s. I'm 61. And I mean, I've got plenty of guys in their 60s that are not near as emotionally intelligent as somebody's in their 30s. They have some wisdom from experience that the 30s don't have or the 20s don't have. But from the standpoint of being able to understand their feelings and talk about their feelings and their emotions, they're much more open to that because they've grown up that way. And they're much more open to counseling than.
Do you see them because of that? Do you see them ramp up quicker?
Yes.
Wow, that's very promising.
They still have the same wound of inadequacy. We all do, right? And they're still trying to fill that wound of inadequacy. But when I sit down with them and go through emotional intelligence, they're much more open to it.
That's awesome.
Than someone who's 60 that's coming to me and the wife's like,
he was talking. You see, he was looking at me when he said that.
And to talk about, I want to go back to the.
I resemble that remark.
I'm like, yikes.
So go back to the wound of inadequacy for those of us for the guys watching that haven't heard that before. I think a lot of us who are familiar around the table with John Eldredge, we know a lot about this idea of the wound of inadequacy universally between men and women, and then how that becomes individualized between the two. That wound doesn't necessarily have to come from something that has happened to you, right? Like it's essentially sort of the curse of being human.
It is. And you look at, I always tell people, sometimes people will say, I had a great childhood, so I don't have any of these wound things you're talking about. And I'll say, but did your parents want you to do well in school? Oh yeah, they wanted me to do really well in school. So what happened if you made a C or oh no, that'd be, we're not studying hard enough. I said, did you play sports? Oh yeah. I said, well, what happened if you struck out or, you were struggling in your sport? Oh, they'd say, we need to get you some lessons. We got to, we need to get you playing better. And I said, so see, they've created this I don't feel accepted or loved. It's first of all, it helps. I mean, that helps us when we get out that we're trying to achieve, we're trying to perform, we're trying to provide for our families. But it creates this, for me to really be loved and accepted, I have to perform.
Yes.
So even the best childhoods come with a performance. You know, if we create what our pattern, you know, the patterns of how we impact our children is, it can be in a very negative way where we're, you know, we have low emotional intelligence and that causes them then to have low emotional intelligence. But also it can be that we put such high expectations on them to perform because we want them to be able to make it in the world in our minds, right? By achieving that, then they're so anxious and have low emotional intelligence because they need constant validation that they're as good as their father wanted them to be, that approval that they're, you know.
Yeah, I would say my father had a very difficult childhood and was super successful, but he felt he served us best by never letting us be comfortable. Like I always say, you're only as good as your last home run. Right. Like I remember at one point he came to a soccer game with my mom to watch me play. It was in college. I was doing really well and playing soccer in college, and I scored probably the best goal I ever scored. And he told my girlfriend, "Let's not mention that goal when the game's over to Tim."
Wow.
There's just like, there's a very,
and
it wasn't, no, I'm like, it was a very intentional, if he ever feels like he's good, he'll be satisfied. Wow. And this is what my counselor said to me. He says, don't curse that. Right. Because look what you've achieved in your life. Right.
It's your superpower, but it can also be an
never be satisfied. And he said, you know what it's done for you? Also, it's robbed you of your joy.
Exactly.
And like my hair stand on end. He said, this is where he said at 61, we're probably not going to get over that fully, but we can do better. Right. We can do better.
And so, Tim, I love that comment so what your dad did became your superpower, but also became your Achilles heel. Amen. And we all have that. Whatever is our superpower is also our Achilles heel. And so what I always say, part of emotional intelligence for me, this is just my opinion, I don't think you're going to read this anywhere, is learning how you want to keep the superpower, but you want to manage the Achilles heel so it doesn't sabotage the superpower. And man, my Achilles heel would sabotage anything that was going good in my life. Like a job, I would be doing really well at a job. My superpower is I had to be good so I wasn't a failure. And so I would work as hard as I could. And then I'd start building up a really good sales pipeline. Then I'd start closing business. But that was my superpower. But then my company would do something that might embarrass me in front of my customer. And then what would I do? Leave. Now I've just left my pipeline. So what was my superpower now became Achilles heel and sabotaged all the goodness from my superpower. So it took me a long time to learn that.
So you've outlined that pattern, and I think we've all seen that pattern. We've talked to men, we've shared our story, but there's always a pattern, and then there's the pattern interrupt. There's the proverbial stick that you put in the back wheel of your bike that stops the bike.
Oh yeah.
What are ways, as you've walked with men and you've worked with different leaders, what are ways that you've allowed an interruption for guys to pause and start understanding why they believe what they believe, why the superpower is turned into not so much of a superpower? It requires some kind of interruption. How do you do that when you work with people? How have you done that?
A practical application.
Yeah.
Well, tell me if this is the right way you want to go. There's three things I always tell everybody that I work with, all the men that I work with. I said, you need a lot of things, right, to help your emotional intelligence. But there's three things that I would just make, they're paramount for every person. First is our faith. And earlier, I want to make I want to go back to something earlier when I said that Danielle and I believe that emotional intelligence is not only the most important thing in business, but it's also in marriage. Faith is the most important. That's what we believe is most important. And see, people, I think, struggle to tie emotional intelligence and faith together, right? And so I love what Pete Scazzaro says in his book, Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, that we can't be spiritually mature if we're not emotionally mature. So faith is really the foundation of our lives, our marriage, our work, our career. Faith should be the foundation. But it's only going to be as strong as our emotional intelligence. And so we have to integrate those together. The higher our EQ, then the stronger our faith as a foundation of our life is going to be. Mm-hmm. So I tell guys, you've got to have faith. And if you read the Bible and you pray, you're going to improve your emotional intelligence. Okay. But if you just do that and don't try to go learn skills around emotional intelligence, it's only going to go so far.
Yeah.
And people, and I think the church has really hurt us with this because they make us say, hey, just read and pray, and that's all you need to do.
Yeah.
And I always tell people, if my sink was leaking, would I just pray or what would I do? I might pray, but I would also go either call a plumber or get a wrench. And we tell people, so anyway, you need your faith is so important.
Think about
it's a starting point. Yeah.
Think about how faith grows with words like surrender.
Yes.
With words like unconditional love, with words like serving others. You can go through each fruit of the Spirit and back into what are the emotional intelligence awarenesses I need to have to really unlock and unleash the fruit of the Spirit.
Yeah.
I think about, like what can you imagine even getting into emotional EQ if you have no concept of surrender, if you have no concept of you first, if you have no concept of cherishing, putting jumping outside of your box, if you have no concept of I'm a lifelong learner versus I know it all.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the whole emotional EQ thing becomes harder and harder if you really haven't latched on to the things that grow our faith. Yeah. I mean, it's hard to see them separately in some cases.
Yeah, I think they can't do it.
And you bring up a great point with the fruits of the Spirit. We all the time, people can quote the fruits of the Spirit, but when someone says something they don't like or agree with, they have a hard time doing the fruits of the Spirit.
Right. It's like you have to go back.
I know them.
Go back to square one.
All of a sudden, I'm not patient. I don't have self-control. Yeah. Right? I'm not kind.
Knowledge and practice are different.
Right.
Yeah. Why? What happened? Why?
Yeah. And so but there's other verses in the Bible that help you do that. I mean, there's, I love Proverbs 15:1. A gentle answer turns away wrath, but a harsh word stirs up anger. Right. Or in James 5, be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to be angry. Right? So there's some tools. There's also some tools in there to help us even be better at the fruits of the Spirit, right, in the Bible. So we want to read that. And to your point about the surrendering and others, Peyton, when you were talking about the 20s and 30s and trying to achieve and all the things that we try to do, achieve and relationships and money, that's all me, right? It's all about me. And Scott, you have a great point that the more we are focused on others, the better our emotional intelligence is going to be.
If you think about it, in my case, when I was younger, I would have said the pursuit of money and success was about other people.
Right, because you're trying to provide.
Provide for my family. Yeah.
And how dangerous you couldn't, and so much of our conversations have been, you could not have convinced me at 34 that I wasn't doing it for them.
Oh, and we'll get into this in the marriage section, but I can't tell how many wives come to us and they're so frustrated with their husbands. And the husband's like, I don't know what they complain about. We have a great house. We have cars. We have blah, blah, blah. This life that she gets to live. And she's like, I just want emotional connection. I want emotional safety. I want, and of course the husband's like, emotional what?
It's so funny.
But you have a roof over your head.
Exactly.
I have never met a business leader, a founder, a CEO. I've never met their wife. I've never met a wife of one of those types that has looked at me and said, hey, Scott, you don't understand. I want him in the office at 6:30. I want him home by 8. I've never heard a wife say, I want him to work harder.
Right.
Unless, I've heard it from really bad marriages.
Most do not.
I've never heard.
Not want that.
I've never heard somebody say, you know what? I really appreciate everything he's doing, and I want more.
Go make some more money.
I wish he would work 20 hours in the day versus 16.
Right. I wish, I've never heard them say, you know what, honey, I want one more house.
Yeah.
Right.
Go back to the office.
Or I only want this. I mean, there's a lot of wives that want it all. They want both, right? They want the house, the money, but they want the connection and the emotional. But the wives that really want the emotional connection. They want to. It's like they want to feel cherished.
Yeah.
They want to feel appreciated, valued. but that cherish is a big word for women. And so they don't feel cherished if their husband's never around and doesn't
and
have an
understanding
emotional connection with them.
Understanding that about what they need is a part of emotional intelligence, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So I want to go back to something you said earlier. When you get to the fork in the road and you have that conversation with your wife, we've had a conversation with our wives. It's happened. We've had that feeling. The Holy Spirit has convicted us. Something's wrong. What is your thought process in helping us get over that first initial feeling of, I'm not sure what to do. And then there becomes some frustration on how to fix it. What are the baby steps to move from, I've got to do some work. I don't know how to do the work.
Yeah.
And that can turn into anger, like this is too hard, or it can turn into, I'm going to do the first thing. What does that look like?
Yeah. So I encourage everybody to find a counselor or mentor. So that's when I talked about earlier, faith, we got to pray and read the Bible.
Right.
I'd immediately go there to anybody I would talk to. Then the second thing is find a counselor or mentor, and someone who understands EQ. That's their specialty, whether it's a counselor or a mentor. Go get them to help you understand what's going on. Why do you tick the way you tick? Why are you motivated the way you make? Why do you respond the way you respond? Why are you feeling whatever feelings you're feeling right now? Go find that counselor, find a professional, or it doesn't have to be a professional. It can be a mentor, but someone that really has experience with EQ. And then the next thing I always tell them that. So the first thing's faith. Second one is a counselor and mentor. Third thing is a band of brothers, brotherhood. And I tell you, all of us men need community, and we need guys that we can share life together. The struggles, but also the wins, things we wouldn't share with anybody because we don't want to come across as bragging, but they want to hear it. Right. Yeah. And then they'll keep us accountable. Right. So when we come to complain about our wife or about our job, like, one thing our counselor, one of the greatest things the counselors taught us is that the more frustrated I am, the more I'm complaining about something, the more it's about me than the circumstance. So you want people in your lives that when you come and at first, when they come to vent, you don't want to challenge them right then. Let them vent. But then after they get calmed down, maybe come back another time and say, hey, let's talk about what you were so upset with your wife about, or girlfriend or job. And let's talk more about that. What do you think your role is in the frustration or the situation? The guys that will do that, and see, a mentor or a counselor will do it, but you're not going to have them available all the time. But if you're in regular time with a brotherhood, with a few good men, as they say, that has been gigantic in my life.
I'm going to push on that because I so agree with it. But I would have said then, I am in a band of brothers. But they were all one-upsmanship, sarcasm. You don't drive a Mercedes. It's not enough to have a circle.
Absolutely.
You got to have the right kind of circle, right?
Absolutely.
So do you find yourself in that position advising him? It's like, tell me about your friend. Like, I'm not going to pick on Peyton, but Peyton was saying earlier, in my peer group, we're doing do you need to look at your peer group and go, are these guys bringing out the best in me? Or are they bringing out the most achievement in me? And those are different.
Right. Absolutely. And so when I mentor them, I try to get guys to all get in group.
I'm not picking on you.
No.
Kate's looking at me like, what? You threw my friends under the bus.
I tell all guys, you need to get into a smaller group, and it needs to be the group you just described, Tim. It's got to be a group where you're going to be real with each other. And if you can't do it in a group, at least find that one guy. Find that one accountability partner that you are willing to, you want them to ask you the questions you want nobody to ask you. It's better if you've got a small band of brothers to do it with, but you want those people where you're going to be vulnerable, transparent. You're going to want them to ask you the questions you don't want anybody to ask you. Everything's got to be obvious. You got to trust them. It's going to be confidential. But I've even helped some of those groups get together. But that is one of the biggest things.
I've got a story on that one because it was so profound in my life. In one of our group, the group that we're still in 19 years later, I was struggling connecting with my father. And one of the guys said, doesn't your dad read some, fiction book series? And I basically, my response was, I ain't got time for that. I got a career. I only read nonfiction. I'm building skills. And God convicted me that night. And 2 weeks later, I started reading the books, and my dad and I just went like that.
Incredible. Oh man.
But so it's one, being with people that will tell you.
Yes.
And also being able to I was not able to in the moment receive that.
Yeah.
But as I just like trusted God, like how it's going, like, no, you need to do this. It changed our relationship. Something as trivial as I just started reading books that he read.
I love that. I love that. Now you got me thinking now, you know, my kids, what are the things I need? You know, you always try to get involved with
Meet them where they are.
Yeah. And of course, our spouses and what they are as well. Now that's really, really, really good.
We've covered a lot. I think about now handles. I think about the outward things that we want to start dealing with more inwardly, the outward things that we want to start being better equipped to suss out or to self-develop or explore inwardly. So I want to get to one question. When a man, you mentioned earlier reactions, when a man has a 10 reaction, an absolute explosion to a 2 situation, typically what is driving about this? There's 2 levels to the question. There's what we see on the outside, but I think you have a really amazing perspective on the physiology of reactions. Yeah. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. So first of all, I think one of the things that triggers men the most, right, to have a bad reaction is when our capability or integrity is questioned. Mm-hmm. So whenever that happens, that's how I think the wound of inadequacy, if you take it one level up, is like, whenever that capability or integrity gets questioned, boom, we get flooded, right? And so so the reason, Scott, so now what I'm going to share with you is the most important thing I've learned in almost 28 years of counseling. And I share this with everybody I talk to. I always say, if you don't ever talk to me again, please remember this one thing.
Good for you.
And it's how the brain and nervous system works, because it's really what's in charge of those 10 reactions.
Right.
As I always say, our subconscious, our nervous system runs our life and often ruins our life. And so if we're not careful, so back to emotional intelligence. So what's happening is the way the brain works, right? The front of our brain is our prefrontal cortex, and that's the logical part of our brain. Well, right underneath it are 2 little almond-shaped parts of our brain called the amygdala, A-M-Y-G-D-A-L-A. Or as I like to say, that dadgum amygdala. And so I'll keep the language nice. So the amygdala is our fear threat system. And so it's designed, when it gets triggered, to hijack the prefrontal cortex. In a millisecond, flood us with cortisol and adrenaline to fight, flight, or freeze. That's great. If we're walking through the woods and a bear crosses our path, we don't need a negotiation going on. We want that amygdala is going to hijack the prefrontal cortex. In a millisecond, flood us with the cortisol and adrenaline, fight, run, freeze.
Which is great if you're trying to survive.
Exactly. Right. It's what it's designed for, right? Hopefully not fight the bear, but you get the picture, right? But here's the challenge. When anybody, our spouse or anybody else, says something we don't like or agree with, or does something we don't like or agree with, that amygdala gets triggered, and it tries to hijack the prefrontal cortex.
Same way that seeing a bear in the woods.
Same way, exact same thing. And it floods us with cortisol and adrenaline to fight, flight, or freeze, right? And so for us tigers, so we have this, Danielle and I've come up with this thing called Tigers and Turtles. Matter of fact, we're writing a book called Tigers and Turtles. And us tigers, when we get flooded with cortisol and adrenaline, when we get triggered, we fight. And how that looks like, we don't fight with our fists, we fight with our words and defensiveness and lashing out, anger, right? That's the tiger. The turtle, when they get flooded, biologically, they shut down or withdraw. So much so that turtles, their nervous system, when they get flooded, they literally can't think of words. So when a tiger's interacting with a turtle, and I'm mad with my wife, when I'm mad with my wife, and I'm like, blah, 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 blah. And she's just, and I'm like, say something. And I'll ask her a question. Well, what did you do this for? And I'm like, say something. And she literally
shuts down.
Can't even, and I get so mad because I think she's being disrespectful because she's not
or silent treatment.
Or engaging, that she's being intentional with it. It's not, it's biological. She literally in that moment is frozen and can't think. And so that's when, and I haven't even got to the most important part. This is the most important part. The prefrontal cortex stores all of our memories as pictures, right? But the amygdala stores all of our memories as emotions with no pictures. This is the most important thing I've ever learned. So let's just use an example. My dad, when I was growing up, he would embarrass me horrifically. I mean, really bad in front of my friends, wherever. All the times I can remember that's my prefrontal cortex because there's a picture with it. But my amygdala has stored all of those memories as emotions with no picture. So how it shows up. I mentioned it earlier. Let's talk about work. I mentioned earlier in my career, if either one or two things would happen, my company would do something I felt like embarrassed me in front of my customer. Product didn't work the way it was supposed to. What happened, right? Or my boss might, to try to motivate me, hey, your numbers are down this month. Are you sure you're working hard enough? And man, I would go to a 10. Well, this embarrassment, what would happen is my brain in a millisecond would remember the way my dad used to embarrass me and flood me with that horrible feeling. But see, since there's no picture with it, I blame my boss or my company for that horrible feeling. Marriage is where it shows up the most. And parenting. So I'm gonna give you one of each. So early in our marriage, if Danielle would correct me, and say I'm telling y'all a story and she would correct me 2 or 3 times, that should irritate or embarrass on a 2 or 3 scale on a 1 to 10. No big deal. Get in the car afterwards. Hey, honey, I know you didn't mean to. You corrected me 2 or 3 times in front of the guys. Man, that embarrassed me, makes me feel the way my dad did. She'd say, oh, I don't want you to feel the way your dad did. I'm so sorry. That's not what would happen. Early in our marriage, she would correct me. Immediately, my amygdala would remember the way my dad embarrassed me.
We'd hammer.
Boom.
Yes.
Steam would be coming off my head. It'd be awkward for you guys because you'd see the steam coming off my head.
Hammer.
We'd get in the car and what would I do?
Scream.
You're the biggest jerk in the world. Yeah. Right. And it was all because the amygdala was associating that embarrassment the way that my dad did.
And a lot of times you probably don't even realize it. Like
Yeah,
you're
no
probably not
idea till
logically connecting the two.
No way. You never connected. So when that would happen, since there was no picture, who did I blame for that horrible feeling? I blame Danielle. Right. And in parenting, when the kids were little, if they acted up in front of I remember one time, this is one of my most embarrassing stories. Chandler was, I think, 8 years old. My daughter was 8 years old, and we were going to school, and she forgot her shoes. Right. And I was taking her to school. So either one or two things. And I yelled at her like she had created the worst crime in the world, and went back, got her shoes, took her to school, checked her in late. I'm driving to work. I'm crying because of how bad I had treated her right now, because now I've settled down and I regret what I did. We always say the amygdala will do things that the prefrontal cortex has to come back and apologize for. The amygdala will say things that the prefrontal cortex can come back and apologize for. So when I was going to counseling every week then, and so when I got to counseling that week, I told him the story, and I was so embarrassed to tell him the story. He goes, Russ, as soon as she said, I don't have my shoes, your amygdala in a millisecond said 2 things are going to happen. You're either going to go back and get the shoes and be late, which means you're a bad father, or you're going to show up your daughter with no shoes, which means you're a bad father. So it was all about me being embarrassed and how I was going to look. But see, my amygdala was so fears being embarrassed because I'm afraid I'll feel the way my dad did, but you can't correlate it. It's millisecond happening.
So
it's not rational.
Wow.
So what's the interrupt to like emotions with no pictures? We literally fill in current pictures with past emotions, whether they correlate or not.
Yeah. And we don't even know that's happening because it's millisecond flooding of cortisol and adrenaline. And so, what we have to do is first start learning when I get flooded, what that feels like. And we all know it. That's that yucky feeling we don't like. It can be anger, it can be hurt, it can be sadness, whatever it is. But as soon as I start getting that feeling of flooding, the first thing I have to do is pause. Now, for us tigers, that's really hard. For the turtles, that's easy. Okay. But the turtles have their own challenge we'll get to in a second. So, the challenge for turtles is coming back to conflict or tension. Yeah. Right. Tigers, they're fine with conflict and tension. Let's go. Right. Let's go. But
maybe too comfortable.
Way too comfortable.
Well, that's what we do in sales.
Exactly.
We're professional arguers.
Exactly. So we have to. So as soon as we get that flooded, we need to pause. All right. Then we need to disengage, and both. Well, whoever, like in marriage, we say both of us go away, but it can be in any situation. Anytime I get flooded, I've got to recognize it, and I got to pause, and then I got to ask myself, well, what am I feeling? Well, I'm mad. Okay. What else am I feeling? Because anger, hurt, frustration are high-level primary emotions. Underneath, down here at the bottom is the wound of inadequacy. I'm giving the punchline a little ahead of time. I've got to get myself to here. Because that's what's really the issue is what's really driving it.
Fear.
But along the way down there is, what do I feel? I feel embarrassed. I feel disrespected. I feel unappreciated. I feel taken advantage of. I feel. Down here is I feel insecure and insignificant, inadequate, not worthy, even maybe not lovable. None of us want there. So as we try to go through this, our brain will try to push back. Do not go there. It'll try to push it back. So I have to force my way down here. then I say, okay, this is what I'm really feeling. So this is really more about me than the circumstance, because this down here is from my childhood. And so I say, okay, when in my childhood have I felt these deep, intense emotions? And now I'm able to connect the two and come back, okay. So that the process is realize I'm flooded, pause, go have my conversation with myself. I call it the frustration conversation, because the more frustrated I am, the more it's about me. Yeah. And then come back and have a calm conversation. Wow. Come back and address it in a calm. And when I come back, I'm going to own, hey, when this happened, this is what I felt. I know this is more about me. It really helped me if you could have done this differently.
The healthiest way to approach this is not to wait until you're in that situation, but to have done the work when you're not in the situation, right? That's like, correct. Don't wait till it happened and try to catch yourself.
Yeah. But you will never, I hate using the word never. This may be one time to use it. I always say we never get healed. Okay. We get healing and we get better.
Oh, right on.
But see that some people will come to us and they'll say, I've been in 10 years of counseling and so I'm healed. So all of our problems have to be my spouse's. Oh, because I'm healed.
That's not much healing.
Let me know how that goes for you.
We have people tell us that. My counselor said I'm healed. So all our issues got to be them.
It's almost like the more healing I get, the more I realize I need.
Exactly.
That's right.
Absolutely, Tim. Sorry. Sorry, Peyton. I'm not used to
it.
As you can tell, I'm use my hands a lot. Right?
Let me go back, because I got about 1,000 more questions.
I got one more, but
let's talk about tigers and turtles.
Yes.
Do you see typically that marriages are one of each?
Oh, great question. This is wild. Of the 400 plus couples we've worked with, I would say about 80% there's a tiger and a turtle.
Yeah.
We haven't figured out why. There are two tigers, and man, they fight like crazy.
I've seen some tigers and that doesn't look good.
The two tigers fight like crazy, but they're also the most passionate.
Well, that's true.
Okay. They're also the most passionate. So they make up the best, but they fight the hardest. The two turtles rarely address anything. And so they actually sometimes can be the hardest ones because they don't ever address anything. And then eventually there's not a lot of emotional connection. They get into apathy and they can fall. Those are some can be the hardest ones, believe it or not. Tigers and turtles, I believe, I love it because, we believe that, why marriage can be so hard is because why God made it so hard. People ask us, why does God make marriage so hard? I'm like, so we can make us more like Christ. Right, because it forces us to be more emotionally intelligent.
Never happy,
right? And so even if you're not a believer, we'll say sometimes we work with non-believers. Obviously, we'll say even if you don't believe that, do you want to be a better version of yourself? Well, you're only going to be a better version of yourself in a container where you're forced to work on your emotional intelligence. Learning it is only not even half the battle. The battle is getting in and practicing when people trigger you. So that's why I say you can do all the work ahead of time, Tim, but until you get in there and practice it and people say things you don't like and agree with, and you learn how to get curious instead of furious, right? Which is one of the hard ones to do.
That'll hunt.
I don't get to tell many success stories, but I've caught myself in the last year, so 64.
That's awesome.
In a conversation with my wife where it's escalating, and in the middle of it, go, honey, this is my trigger.
Beautiful. Oh, beautiful.
And I'm going to apologize up front, but this is where my wounds are going to show. But it's 64. Yeah. I'm hoping the Pagans of the world can do better than 64.
Tim, when you do that, when you communicate that way, that takes the defensiveness out of it.
Yeah.
Because you're owning it.
Permission.
You're owning it. You're not saying you're the problem. You're saying I'm the problem.
But I am asking her
for help.
And to change her approach.
Exactly.
Which is, I feel bad, but it's much more constructive.
Yeah.
Much more.
Versus it's coming out of the amygdala and you're going, and you're coming back with these 10 reactions.
And then she turtles.
Right.
And you get nowhere.
We call that the ugly dance.
Oh.
The tiger turtle ugly dance.
So when you look, lots of awareness, lots of tools, lots of things. If this is the first, second, or third time, or maybe this is the moment where somebody hears this and says, I need to double click on this. This is not new to me, but maybe today I'm ready to hear it. I'm ready to act on it. How do you take this new box of tools and introduce it into your life, our life, and get it to a place where once I have it in my life, I can take it to my other roles and responsibilities. Just the baby steps. I think emotional EQ is not new. I think what happens is we get to places and spaces in our life where we're finally ready to hear it.
Yeah.
And maybe this is the pattern at home. Maybe this is the pattern with my team at work. Mm. So what are the baby steps to get started for somebody who's saying, okay, Russ, I hear you. I'm going to try this on for a while.
Mm. Yeah. Well, so first of all, there's really great, you guys are so fortunate at your age now, Peyton, that we didn't have at our age, when we were your age, access to so much emotional intelligence information through podcasts, through books, resources, YouTube. It's just incredible. So I would start consuming all that I could consume.
Okay.
And then secondly, I would go find someone, a counselor or a mentor to work with me on it as I practice it. Because the key is practicing it.
Right.
Go find ways to practice it, whether it's work, marriage, friends. I tell people one of the best ways to practice is go find someone on the other side of the political aisle and ask them their perspective on a hot topic. They're going to say something you don't like or agree with.
And here we go.
There's your practice, right? Because we can only get good at it through practice. We have to be self-aware to start. We have to, I always say I can watch YouTube on golf on how to be a golfer all day long. But till I get out there and try to practice, and even on the driving range, I'm hitting it well, and then I get on, and then you get out there and there's winds, and now I'm off the chart. Same thing with this, different circumstances are going to dictate how well we do this. The more practice, the better we get. Mm-hmm. We have to start with understanding it. So the first step, consume, go learn through counseling, mentors, YouTube, podcasts, books. There's so many great things out there, resources for it.
And to look that stuff up, is it literally I'm just putting emotional intelligence into Google and
Absolutely.
YouTube? Okay.
It was funny. A while back, some guys asked me, send me a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, I could tell them, go just Google it. But so I did it. I already had some that I knew. Mm-hmm. But when I Googled podcasts, Daniel Goleman, who's wrote the first book on emotional intelligence in 1995, he's doing podcasts still today.
Yeah.
Go to Daniel Goleman's podcast, right? If you just Google that stuff. As I mentioned earlier, my favorite book is Emotionally Healthy Spirituality, because it combines the spiritual and the emotional intelligence together, which I think makes it even more powerful, obviously, when we bring God. So the first thing I do would ask God for help. I'd pray and ask God for help. That was my number one thing. Second, I would find someone to help me, a professional or a mentor. And then third, I would get a band of brothers, even if it's just one brother, that will go on the journey with me and question me. And one of the things to ask either our wife or our accountability partner is, what's it like to be on the other side of me? Somebody that knows us really well. What's it like? That's from Jeff Henderson, right?
Yeah.
What's it like to be on the other side? And I like what Jeff says, 3 things are going to happen. You're going to be encouraged, you're going to learn a lot, and you're going to get your feelings hurt. And if you're not getting your feelings hurt, they're not being honest with you.
Here we grow.
Right? Here we grow.
Here we grow.
Right? And then the last thing is I would start consuming all the stuff that I could consume.
And we'll put some of those resources in the description for the video.
That emotionally healthy
spirituality,
it really has changed my life.
The book.
That one
It's profound. It's profound.
Yeah.
So we have now jumped into the deep end of the pool, and you're with us. And we're going to the side of the pool to get a breath. But we're now aware of what emotional intelligence is. We're now aware of how it works.
And how much we need it.
And how much we need it. Please, Jesus. So as we go forward, we're going to talk about how to take emotional intelligence into our most important relationships, and in the most important roles we play as men, as spiritual leaders. So come on back to the Outpost.